and welcome to Euromonitor International's Fashion Friday podcast series, where we discuss global trends in fashion, luxury, apparel, and footwear. Today, I'm joined by Ayako Hama and Ben Schneider from our office in Chicago, and they both research the beauty and fashion industries. Ayako, Ben, how are you both doing today?
Great. Thanks, Pete.
Good here too. Thanks, Pete.
Great. Glad to hear it. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about sportswear and apparel in North America specifically. My first question for both of you is, how has COVID-19 impacted the sportswear and apparel industry in North America? And are you optimistic for 2021?
Well, after such a tough year in 2020, we are optimistic about the outlook for apparel in North America. The easing of pandemic restrictions and the progress of vaccine rollout in the US especially is already allowing consumers to live more of life like they used to. But the apparel and footwear industry was among the hardest hit by COVID 19. As cases surged and lockdowns caused severe economic uncertainty, consumer confidence dropped sharply in the early days of the pandemic. And consumers quickly shifted their spending, prioritizing essentials like groceries and household items, while cutting back on discretionary products like clothing, footwear, and accessories. And also, the cancellation of events and expansion of remote work and learning further weakened demand throughout the year.
Yeah, I imagine that all this increased time at home has caused consumers to dress a little bit differently, to say the least.
Yeah, that's definitely right. Increased time spent at home amid the lockdowns and other restrictions led consumers to dress completely differently. While working, learning, socializing, and more, all from their own homes, consumers increasingly chose casual and comfortable clothing like loungewear and other sportswear items over more formal or trend driven products. So, while all apparel and footwear categories did post declines in 2020, sportswear items like comfortable tops and sweatpants performed far better than more formal and occasion wear like suits and dresses. Now, more and more consumers are returning to offices, gathering with friends, and even taking vacations, and apparel sales are starting to return in stride across categories. While more fashion forward items like dresses, skirts, and jeans will certainly see a bounce back from the record low sales in 2020, as consumers are now finding opportunities to wear these items again. The long term outlook for non sports apparel is not as optimistic as it is for sportswear. In fact, the social and behavioral trends that drove sports inspired and performance apparel before and during the pandemic will only continue to take shape in the coming years, and as such, the lines between fashion and sportswear will further blur. Athleisure wear had already become a mainstream trend before the pandemic, as consumers already began to adopt a mindset of health is the new wealth, and they were prioritizing their physical fitness and participating in more exercise and outdoor activities. At the same time, the increasing casualization of dress codes in work and social spaces allowed consumers to feel appropriate, wearing comfortable sportswear items on a wider variety of occasions.
So you talked a little bit about the blurring of lines between fashion and sportswear, even pre-pandemic, and I'm curious to know who exactly was leading the trend in making athleisure more mainstream.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would say women were some of the early adopters of athleisure because they were among the first to choose to wear yoga pants and athletic tops both inside and outside of the gym. We saw that many women care deeply about leading healthy lifestyles and increasingly found ways to incorporate exercise into their daily routines. And so this change in consumer behavior led them to become a key consumer group in the athleisure market. And we saw that sportswear companies like Nike and Adidas have stated their focus on women as their next key consumer group. They have increased their marketing and product offerings targeted toward women, and these efforts have been pushed even further by the movement for gender equality and women's empowerment. And this has remained especially true amid the pandemic, with increased attention on the role of mothers as remote work and learning has led families to spend increased time together at home. Many are helping to promote more active lifestyles among their entire families. Although consumers of all ages have begun to walk, run, bike, and more, both by themselves and with others amid the pandemic, this is especially true for families, which have helped to expand the use of sportswear across all age groups in recent months.
What do you think some of the challenges will be for the sportswear category in the next couple of years?
Well, as hybrid work becomes more common, in office dress codes will relax even further as companies try to attract more remote workers into the office who have gotten used to working from home in a sportswear uniform of t shirts, sweatpants, and hoodies throughout 2020. Although in person social gatherings will grow in attendees, many will remain small and casual, and they'll likely feature virtual components as well, which will lead consumers to still spend much of their free time at home. And finally, with some having transformed their homes into an interactive group fitness studio, or at least become fond of some socially distant outdoor activities like hiking, running, and walking, like Ayako mentioned, many consumers will lead more active lifestyles than they had before the pandemic. As a result, sportswear sales growth will outpace non sportswear sales growth over the coming years. Consumer demand will continue to shift toward more versatile, comfortable, and fashionable sportswear pieces for all occasions, including working, socializing, exercising, and more. Sportswear brands like Nike will increasingly offer products that combine their technical expertise with fashion aesthetics, while continuing to partner with athletes, gyms, and at home fitness providers to grow their audiences, just like Adidas did with its recent apparel collection made in partnership with Peloton. Meanwhile, some non-sports apparel brands like fast fashion retailers Zara and H&M will source more performance fabrics to improve the comfort and enhance the functionality of their products, while also expanding their sports-inspired and performance apparel collections. And finally, department stores and other retailers that were hit especially hard by the store closures during the pandemic will increasingly partner with sportswear brands and exercise equipment providers in order to draw customers back to their stores, just like Nordstrom did in its recent partnership with Tonal, the maker of a wall mounted home gym, to put mini Tonal stores in 40 Nordstrom locations.
I'm glad you mentioned tonal because that brings me to my next question. With all this increase of demand for home gyms, I'm curious if sportswear brands are kind of leveraging or partnering with home gyms for that kind of a trend.
Definitely. With gyms forced to close during lockdowns, many consumers began to exercise at home for the first time, and some turned to their favorite brands for help. Like some people took yoga classes on YouTube offered by brands like Lululemon and Alo Yoga, and others tried the new workout classes launched within the Nike and Adidas apps throughout the year. We also saw other people making significant investments in their home workout routines by purchasing internet connected equipment like Peloton and SoulCycle that enabled them to participate in live classes with fellow users and also, access on demand classes on their own time. And speaking of that, I want to talk about Lululemon's recent acquisition of Mira because it's a great example of how sportswear brands can find new revenue streams outside of its core apparel and footwear categories. And through this acquisition, Lululemon can explore cross selling opportunities, especially given the clear overlapping customers with sports equipment manufacturers.
So we have all this growth in sportswear, all these different brands growing. What are brands doing to compete and win with today's consumers?
Sportswear brands are trying to capitalize on the expected demand by tailoring their product and retail offerings to all of these evolving consumer preferences. At the same time, they're trying to ensure that their internal operations and their marketing messages all resonate with the values of their communities of customers, especially as consumers are becoming increasingly vocal about their own values and critical of companies' words and actions, especially in regards to social and environmental issues. Aligning with their emphasis on exercise, outdoor activities, and just general health and wellness in their products and marketing messages, many sportswear brands are focused on sustainability as a long term initiative, which is manifested in resale programs, sourcing and material innovation, and more. Outerwear brands, Patagonia and the North Face, have long had programs to repair, buy back, resell, and even remake their worn products. Now, sportswear brands are beginning to launch resale programs of their own. In May 2021, for example, Lululemon will roll out its like new resale program at stores in Texas and California before rolling it out online in June. Customers will be able to trade in gently worn Lululemon clothing in exchange for a gift card, and the clothes will then be washed and available for purchase by other customers at a discount. Similarly, Nike recently announced Nike Refurbished, a program to take back, refurbish, and resell men's and women's sneakers, which will begin at 15 Nike stores by the end of April and expand to more stores throughout the year. And finally, having already produced multiple products made from recycled ocean plastic and other waste as part of its partnership with Parley for the Oceans since 2015, Adidas has now pledged that from 2024 onwards, the company will only use recycled polyester in its products, and the share of recycled polyester used has already exceeded 50% for the first time in 2020. So, all in all, as consumers' evolving lifestyles continue to drive demand for sportswear, brands will not only need to deliver in terms of product offering and shopping experience in order to compete. Additionally, they will need to deliver on all the promises they make to increasingly vocal and values-driven consumers in all they say and in all they do.
Well, Ayako and Ben, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your thoughts and insights about sportswear. Very interesting stuff. And remember, to everyone listening, to look out for Euromonitor's Fashion Friday podcast on the last Friday of every month, and find old episodes on our blog at blog.euromonitor.com.